Morning, everybody. It's 8:10 a.m. It is May 28th. May 28th. This market yesterday, basically, I did get the level of interest that I wanted, but it just happened right off the open. And I don't generally enter trades right off the open like that, but it did double demand in the NASDAQ, in the ES, and off the key level, the most traded price of the week, basically, in the ES. And then it just grinded higher. 5908 was a problem for a while. It just couldn't break it. Finally did. 214.30 in the Nasdaq was the big level, and then overnight it broke into the supply zone above it. So we're still not too far from those levels, and we're into a bunch of overhead supply right now. Now what do we have today? Right? We have NVIDIA's earnings, okay, and FOMC minutes at 2 p.m. Okay, that's what's going on for today. Big NVIDIA earnings, okay? So, without further ado, let's just get into this. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile, volume profile to find structure in the markets, along supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. All helps me find structure, okay? That's my edge. I also use Anchor VWAPs, okay? And my market internals, which shows me the guts of the market. Remember, the market cannot outperform its internals, so I always know what the market's capable of. Now, as far as the internals for yesterday, they were beastly. They were beastly. Check them out. Okay. I did do a little live stream yesterday on my Discord, so I was explaining the internals. It was almost 5-to-1 ratio of buying versus selling into up stocks in the NYSE and 4-to-1 in the Nasdaq. That's just very bullish. If you look at the ADD S&P 500, out of 500 stocks, 434 were advancing. Out of the NASDAQ 189 stocks were advancing. That's very bullish. Everything is a sea of green here. So we didn't even get a pullback yesterday. And here, that told me that. So I was only looking longs, and I was looking for that pullback, and never came. Okay, so this is just and it was a broad market rally. Okay, everything was pretty much up yesterday. Okay, just to give you a scope of that. All right. Now, hopefully, you join me every day, morning, give you a scoop, the story of the markets. All right, give you the leads and the laggers, the market news, the economic calendar. We get into the daily charts, and of course, we go to that triple-headed monster, the dollar, the VIX, and the 10-year yield. Okay, and then I give you trade scenarios for the ES and the Nasdaq. Okay, and once the market opens up, if you join my Discord, you'll see some of my dialogue. Okay, might go live again today, so feel free to come join me at my Discord, Confluence Trading. That's on my YouTube homepage. Click the link. Join. Okay, and I think we're ready to get into this futures watch list here and see what's moving markets. Look at that, good old crude. So we got crude up 1.07%. The VIX is up 0.32. Dollar's up 0.29. Nasdaq is up 0.26. 10-year yield's up 0.25. Gold's up 0.21. ES up 0.11. Silver's up 0.10. The Dow is flat. 30-year bonds pretty much flat, but down 0.14. Russell's down 0.16. Bitcoin's down 0.95. Ethereum down 1.25. That's a laggard today. Okay, now Mag 7 Plus. Let's look at those. AMD is leading the pack, up 1%. Okay, Broadcom reports earnings, I believe, next week. Okay, they're up 0.93. NVIDIA reports after the close today. They are up 0.84. Tesla's up 0.70. Apple's up 0.33. Google's up 0.32. Eli Lilly up 0.16. Netflix up 0.09. Amazon up 0.06. Boeing's up 0.02. And Meta's flat. Microsoft flat. Coinbase flat. JP Morgan flat. Berkshire Hathaway's flat, and GE down 0.12. GE down 0.12. GE actually had a nice day yesterday. Okay. Let's move on. Sectors, the guts of the market, right? This is what moves markets right here. All right, so semis are up. They're the leader today, up 0.34. followed by technology up 0.25, energy up 0.12, healthcare up 0.02, which is pretty much flat. Discretionary is flat, and then we got a bunch of flat. Utilities down 0.07, financials down 0.08. Now, market's kind of muted right now, very muted. NVDA earnings after the close, and you got FOMC minutes. FOMC minutes, you'll get something out of it. It's not an FOMC day, right? Sometimes it's a nothing burger, sometimes maybe, because you get to see what they said at the Fed meeting. So that's what's going on there, okay? Now, I think we can get right into the economic calendar. Some news. Let's move on to that. Okay, so today, Fed Kashkari spoke at 4 a.m. 7 a.m. you had the 30-year mortgage. Let's see what that's previously 6.92, almost at 7% now. That 10-year yield is not helping that. FOMC minutes, like I talked about, at 2 p.m. API crude at 4:30. Okay, that's what's going on there. Now, of course, let's just look at the earnings calendar real quick. All right, we had after the close yesterday, Okta, Box, they reported earnings. This morning before the open were Dick's, Abercrombie and Fitch, Macy's. Okay, now after the close today, NVIDIA, Salesforce, AI, Viva, Sentinel One. Right before the open tomorrow, Foot Locker, Best Buy, Kohl's, Hormel, Burlington. All right, so big earnings today. NVIDIA after the close. Okay, moving on to some news. Okay, let's look at this. An exclusive aircraft leasing giant calls on Trump to expand Zero Tariff Plan Act. Okay. Minutes of the Fed meeting might likely to show officials grappling with uncertainty. Amazon in-car software deal with Stellantis fizzles. Jeep maker Stellantis names insider to lead revival. Okay, Stellantis named its North American chief Antonio Filosa as its new chief executive officer on Wednesday. Okay, semiconductor ETF options show caution ahead of NVIDIA results. Says traders in the options market are bracing for industry-wide volatility when AI chipmaker NVIDIA reports results on Wednesday. Okay. Now, if we look at the before the bell here, Wall Street futures slipped after a sharp rally in the earlier session as investors turned their focus towards AI bellwether NVIDIA's earnings scheduled to be released at their market's close. NVIDIA is estimated to report a surge in first quarter revenue. Europe's stock 600 index was slightly lower as markets continued to monitor progress on trade negotiations between the EU and the United States and also assessed a slate of economic data from the region. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei ended flat after reversing earlier gains. Gold prices firmed as investors bought into the previous session's dip. The dollar was mostly unchanged against a basket of major currencies. Oil prices were higher after the U.S. barred Chevron from exporting Venezuelan crude, but an expected decision from OPEC Plus later this week to increase production in July capped gains. All right. Let's move on. Let's see. General Mills, the company said on Tuesday it would record a charge of about $70 million in its current quarter, mainly reflecting severance expenses as part of the Cheerios cereal makers restructuring efforts. All right. Let's see. General Motors, the company is investing $888 million at a New York propulsion plant to increase engine production and build a next generation V8. All right. We talked about NVIDIA. Talked about Stellantis. Okay. Now I did see Macy's and stuff. They're let's see here. Usually it gives me a nice little summary here. I'm not gonna go crazy over it because it doesn't really move markets. Yeah, usually they give me that summary. I'm not gonna go crazy over it. Let's go to financials here. Anything said in red? Not really. Big thing is obviously actually with Fed Goolsby speaking at 10:40. Fed Daily. Okay. All right. Actually, that's tomorrow. I'm sorry. Oh boy, here we go. At noon we have okay. A couple things today. At noon we have JD Vance speaks at a Bitcoin event. 2 p.m. we have Trump signs executive orders. Okay, so I hope to be done by then, so I don't have to deal with that. All right. So that's what's going on in FOMC minutes. Is the same time Trump signs executive orders. Okay, the same time Trump signs executive orders. Okay. All right, let's go into daily charts. All right, and then we'll get into the 1 hour futures charts, which show a little bit of a pulled out view from futures analysis. Okay, let's go to the SPY. Here we go. This is our daily charts analysis. All right, so here's our SPY. Look what happened yesterday. See this trend channel, right? Still honoring it. I could even push it out a little bit, but look what we did. So there's last week's lows right at the 200-day moving average, right? We didn't really come down to that, but we came down right here, right? Pushed down, and then we pushed up, and we really grinded higher, right? We took out Thursday's highs. Wednesday's highs are here, and then you have last week's highs here. So you can see 2 weeks in a row we were at these highs, right? Where are we at now? 591.70. So we are right above yesterday's highs, gapping up a little bit. Okay, but this is going to be real resistant. And what's coming up, NVDA and earnings in FOMC. Okay, so that level, I'm gonna say it's around 595 to 596 of resistance. That's probably going to be resistance today if we move higher, right? So on days with big news, sometimes you chop, sometimes you make a move, and then it reverts back to the mean. Okay, so let's look at futures. Just give us a better look at the price action for the overnight here. Okay, so here's your ES. You know, that grind higher, we dropped. Then you put in yesterday, you pushed up, actually made a demand zone here, right off the 100-day moving average. And now look, we're right at yesterday's highs. And the resistance in futures, you can see here, right? This is last week's highs, previous week's highs. Overhead resistance, right? So 59.82 to 59.92, that's your resistance in the ES. Okay, that's your resistance in the ES. And look at the Qs, you know. So Q's got big time resistance, right? I was talking about this yesterday on my live stream. All right, so yesterday, look, you gapped up, right? You pretty much came down, hit the 90-MA daily, and now you're battling the 2 previous weeks highs. Okay, 522 to 523. That's your resistance. Where are we at now? We're at 522.70. We are right there. So we're gapping up slightly, and we're right at that resistance, right? So this trend channel can go all the way up to here, right? But if we get, now today, like I said, because NVIDIA probably is expecting a beat, which they always do, it's just, you know, how much more than expectations can it beat? I know Oracle has set to buy like $40 billion worth of chips. So, you know, this will, a big move will happen after the markets close. But do we ramp up into it? I don't know, right? That's the question. Now let's look at the futures just to give us price action here. So you can see this resistance. Same thing. We'll call that 215.50 around. That's resistance. It's been resistance a lot. So these are daily. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions that's been resistance. Can it finally break? Does NVIDIA push this through, or does NVIDIA disappoint and we go back down? Don't know. Okay, I never know. I don't claim to know. That's a fool's errand to try to predict. Okay, I just react to what's going on. Okay, now looking at the bond market, triple-headed monster here. Yields have been falling. Okay, yields have been falling. I like that. As I added to my TLT position. So if we break this, we kind of broke this uptrend here. I would love for us to start losing this, like this 4.4 yield, and to start to move back down. Okay, you can see we're underneath the 2025 anchor VWAP here. It's played with that level a lot. Okay, so you're hitting kind of the backside of this downtrend. We just have to see. Remember, 4.27 yield is the most traded price of the last 5 years in the 10-year yield, like right in here. So it'd be nice to come down and maybe get some yields. Because remember, if this starts to go higher and higher and higher, that's not good for the stock market. Okay, that's not good. All right. So moving on to your dollar. To your dollar. Dollar is up today, but really, you can see here, come down, come up, come down. Now, is this going to break this here and start to move up? I don't know. Okay. Right. There was I believe a 40-year bond auction today in Japan that had weak demand. So I believe that yen is moving lower. So let's just check out the yen real quick. Yeah. So the yen's moved lower, right? Let's just check out the euro. Probably did too. Yeah, a little bit. Moved a little lower. Okay. But the euro is the biggest weight against the dollar. So, and we'll look at VIX. That's our fear gauge. We are at a 19 VIX. It's a decent VIX. Okay. You can see we're kind of in this range. Popped up here. Then we're kind of back here. Okay, right below the 200-day moving average. So, all right, I think that does there. Now we're gonna move on to the hourly chart. Okay. Kept on harping on these big levels yesterday. So we'll look at the hourly charts together. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so 59.08 right here. That was your most traded price of the last month, right? You can see this spike here right there. And that we spent about an hour there yesterday, which I would expect, right? And then we finally broke it, right? We finally broke it, hit the supply, kind of came back, pushed back up, and then you had some pullback here, right? And then we pushed back up into this supply. So you can see, if you look to the left, this is the 20-year Treasury bond market that happened that pushed down the market with the weak demand, and it had a high of 5%, over 5% yield. Okay, that's what took down this market. You're back to the scene of that crime almost. Okay, in the supply zone here. Okay, so now important. Remember what I said. Find acceptance above 59.08 is bullish. So now we have find acceptance. We have found acceptance. Okay. Now, what did I slap on here? A trend line. So now we have a trend line from here, and you got one touch, two touch. Okay, it's starting to have like an ascending wedge. So there's a wedge here that's been honored. Okay, so possibly what could happen? You push back down into this demand zone, hit that trend, and try to take out the supply. Maybe hit there, hit there, hit there, hit there. Who knows, right? Generally, like I said, I'm not big pattern guy, but generally, this is a bearish thing when market moves, and then once it breaks that, you can start to get some down movement. Okay, but like I said, I like touches, multiple touches, meaning that look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 touches up top here. Okay, so that's why I only put those on when I see that they're being honored. Okay, that's pretty much what I'm looking at, right? So we have our scene of the crime of the bond market. Okay, scene of the crime of the bond market. We're over 59.08, the most traded price of the month. Okay, we're putting in higher lows. So boom, 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 boom. Inside this wedge, inside supply. Okay, so looking pretty bullish for the markets. Okay, ahead of FOMC minutes and NVIDIA's earnings. Okay, moving on to NASDAQ. So NASDAQ, let's look at it together here, okay? So big level. You can see 214.35, the most traded price of this year. Big level. What is the market doing? You see how that level was problematic yesterday? It could not get over it, all right? It needs to find acceptance over it. Well, you pull back, boom. Now we spent the last 3 hours up here above it. That's acceptance. So that's a check. It's a feather in the hat for the bulls. Okay? Feather in the hat for the bulls. But look to the left. It's just so much resistance here. Okay? Because you have a previous week's highs, last week's highs right there. We have not been able to break this level. Now you do have big earnings coming. And of course the NASDAQ, which is tech heavy. Do we break this today? Or this market will drive you nuts and it will happen with NVIDIA's earnings and will be up here and you didn't, obviously you can trade futures and get into that. Or you can trade after hours. So we do have that wedge again. Okay? That ascending wedge. Here's your touch, and you got a bunch of touches here. All right? Kind of lines up here where you can push up to this weekly high and supply, and maybe you get a little pullback here. Right? Don't know. But a feather in the cap, right? What's the price doing? Accepting value above the most traded price of the year. Okay? Most traded price of the year. All right, that's hourly charts. In our volume here, you can see relative volume is actually not bad today. Well, the Nasdaq's not the greatest. Actually, I take that back. It's not the greatest right now. We can zoom into that. 66% and 69% is not great volume. I thought earlier there was some green shoots here, which is, this measures every 15 minutes over the last 20 days and compares. So, yeah, the volume is not great. All right, we're ready for the market profile, volume profile. Let me just change my workspace here, and we'll get right into scenarios. Recap yesterday. I actually did not have a trade yesterday. All right, so let's get into that market profile, volume profile. We'll look into levels together. We'll look at what happened yesterday. Okay. We're first going to look at that profile, the weekly rolling profile together. Okay. So you can see we have a distribution here, then we have a distribution here, and another distribution here. Okay, and what this is showing you here is a bullish imbalance, right? Kind of have incomplete profile to the upside, which would make me believe that we're going to fill this out and go higher. Okay. Now, what else am I seeing? The most traded price, 58.60, which is right here of the week, is going to move higher today. Okay, that level is probably going to be 59.26. Okay, so you can see in the 24 hours it has moved up right here. That's bullish. It's moving the most traded price of the week higher. Generally means higher prices. Okay, and this is kind of setting up beautiful here. Okay, we'll get into the levels. Okay, now we're going to just recap yesterday's price action. All right, so the market opened here, okay, in a horrible area, in the midpoint of the overnight. Horrible. Okay, now, what did I say yesterday? I said inside this is chop, inside this area, right? I said I wanted to be active in this demand zone here, this area here, or this area here. Well, I got what I wanted. because it pushed down right into the demand zone, right by the overnight lows in the most traded price of the week. And then we kind of lifted off and we had news at 10 a.m. Then you had single prints, and then we kind of battled this 5908 level. And then we just grind it higher. Okay, grind it higher. That's what we did yesterday. Okay. Now, as far as the overnight, and we're going to get into some levels now. Okay. Price is here, right there, 59.40. Here's our overnight highs and close of yesterday, right here. We closed at the highs yesterday. 59.41.50 is your high. So 59.41 to 44 is a confluence high. Confluence high. Okay. That means that this becomes very important level. Very important area. Okay. Very important. Now, originally, if you look at inventory, okay, of the overnight, we opened here. We only had this much long activity to this much short. So at one point we were short all the way down here, which would have been almost close to 100% net short, but the market recovered. So this is no longer an edge. Okay. These shorts have already had to cover their position. So that's where we're at. Okay, now certain levels that I'm going to talk about, we talked about this confluence high, the 59.44. So this is going to be important. Also, the most traded price of the overnight is there in the close from yesterday. Okay, the next area, we have a demand zone here. That demand zone kind of lines up with the most traded price of yesterday, this pink box. So that would be another area. And that lines up with the overnight lows. Okay. These are all areas where buyers can step up. Another one that I really like, okay, is the most traded price. We pull back here to the most traded price of the month, and you have a demand zone here, and you have the week-to-date VWAP here, as well as the 50% retracement of yesterday. Okay. Now we do have single prints. Okay. Introduce you to my boy Alfie here, elephant on a toothpick. Okay, now you do have single prints here that the market held, right? That's bullish. Well, here's our elephant again up here, and here's your toothpick. Any acceptance below this level could, if we get weak, just take this right out. This is not good foundation. It's poor structure. Okay, it's poor structure. You want to have a good foundation when you have a house. This is poor structure. However, if we hold in here, it's bullish, and you should go ahead and make a patent for that toothpick that's holding up that elephant. Okay? This is what we're dealing with today. All right? So, just off the bat, I'm biased. I'm bullish. I'm biased bullish right now. Okay, so let's get into scenarios. All right. All right. So, prices here. We're pretty much at yesterday's highs. Okay. However, we are in supply right now. We are in supply. Let me mention another level that I didn't mention before. That's that 59.56. All right. 59.56. And you can see from the past, this is a confluence high as well. Okay, you have a poor high here. I'm going to make this level here. Actually, let me change that color. So I'm going to make sure I put this level up here as well. So this high is confluence high. You got two sessions here, an overnight session and a real-time trading session that caused resistance. Okay. So like I said, remember I said there's a lot of overhead supply, a lot of resistance above this area. It's not easy. It shouldn't get cut through. Like, it's not going to be cut through. Okay, unless there's a catalyst. Which NVDA earnings could be, FOMC minutes, I don't know. Okay. So let's put this up graphic again. We'll start the scenarios again. I just want to make sure, because I know for time, and I want to make accurate. If anybody scans this and looks for that, that you can see that graphic. All right, so price is up here. So what do I want to see? All right, I would love to see a little push up here into this level, and then a pullback back to this area, which happened to be the close, the most traded price of yesterday, and you could get support here. Higher lows, break. Now you got liquidity here, break the 59.56, and then you're still going to be in supply, and possibly you can move up. All right. You do have previous week high all the way up here at 59.93. You also have another one here at like 59.77, which is the start basically of this supply zone. So you can maybe come up here. I would say not really sure you get up to there, but that's one scenario. Okay. Of course, if you get a pullback, where are you going to get that pullback? Right? You can come right into this area. It's the most traded price of yesterday. It's overnight lows, demand zone, and just start to make higher lows and break this and see. You can go here. Okay? Get the point. It's all pullbacks I'm interested in, right? If we take this out, and remember, the internals can just not be that weak. This has to happen kind of quickly. I don't want to grind here. I want it kind of to push down. All right, this right here is my last line for any kind of bullish stance. It's demand. It's the most traded price of the month. It's the week to date VWAP. Okay, it's the 50% retracement of yesterday's session. Right there, boom, bounce, higher low, and probably just start the grind. And I don't think you get too much higher. You might get to here if you can pull back there. Okay, now the last one is the bear trap. If we just come down here and everyone's like, oh man, and let's say the internals are only modestly weak, and you just do a quick one into the single prints, right? That should not be supportive, and you do one of these like a V shape, whoop, yeah, you go long. Okay, so you can see how many scenarios for me are bullish. All right, that's it. If we start to start to find acceptance on it, you're going to test down here. Now that's going to come up here in the bear case scenarios. Okay. All right, let's go to the bear side. All right. So, bear side, come up here, push up, hit that confluence high from the past, fail. Lower high. You come through the most traded price of it overnight, you better believe you're going to go down here and test the most traded price of yesterday. Okay. Overnight lows, you take those out, you're meeting where? 59.08, the most traded price of the month. This is where the rubber meets the road here. If you break that and the market continues to get weak, that's when your boy, Elfie, elephant on a toothpick here, that poor foundation is going to get taken out, and you are going to take out those lows from yesterday. Okay, then you can possibly land at the most traded price of the week, 59.60. Guess what happens after that? If you take this out, you got more single prints and more poor foundation. You could rip down and go right where? To the most traded price of the rolling year, 58.20. Now, that's only scenarios. I do not know if that will happen. Okay, that's why I have these levels, to give you a game plan and a roadmap. All right, moving on to the NASDAQ. Let's look at the structure of the NASDAQ. Clearly a different world. Okay, currently gapping higher. Okay, currently gapping higher, gapping up. Remember, ES is basically at yesterday's highs and the close. It's basically flat. The NASDAQ is gapping up. Okay, so let's analyze the NASDAQ. It's a little different. Okay, 214.88, that's your gap fill. That's your gap fill. Why does that not look like it? Oh, yeah, it is. That's your gap fill, okay? Right there. Now, what does that also encompass? We'll make it a big level here. You can see that big green box here. There's your 214.35. You have demand here. You have overnight lows here. You have yesterday's close. You have the most traded price of the overnight right here. Okay. So what I would like to see happen. Okay, we have that big resistance 215.58. Okay, we're almost there. Remember, here's last week's highs. Here's the week high, previous week highs there. We have a lot of resistance that we have not been able to break. Okay, we're in supply right now, so we're gapping up. So what do I like to see? We're in supply, right? I would love to see a little push up, tap last week's highs, get a little profit taking, pull back to the gap fill, right? Fill that gap, even dip a little bit more down, and then start to get higher lows and move up. Okay, so I just did that like that. So I'm just going to take that out, and we're going to start scenario. So that's really where we're at here, right? We do have that overhead supply, so I'm going to make a zone right around here. Okay, and that's really, I mean, this is the most trade. This is where we came into the demand here yesterday. Okay. And we'll get right into scenarios. I was starting that, but I caught myself. Okay. Let's move. Oh, sorry. Let me do that one more time. Sorry about that. All right. We're going to get into scenarios. Okay. And again, we're gapping up. Okay. Price right here. There's last week's highs. I just said it, but let's do it together. Here we push. I could see a little, oh, people take profits. We pull back. We fill that gap, right? We go down to yesterday's close, the most traded price of the overnight. There's a lot of confluence there, and even dip our toe in that demand zone, high or low. There you go. That would probably give some liquidity to start making our way and try to break out of that big resistance, right? Where could we go? Right there, at the edge of this supply zone. Okay, what's that level? That level is 216.58. Okay, after that, it's gravy. You can go up to 218. Okay, that would be, wow, perfect, right? You all know trading's not perfect. Okay, so if we get a deeper pullback, okay, I'm really don't want to go under 214.35. I want to stay here. Even if we venture down here quickly and we get bought up, whoop, that could be a little bear trap, and we can also move higher. Okay, so anything under this level, I'm not really interested in a long. I'm not. Okay, any acceptance below here, I'm really not, because I feel if we take this out, we're probably going to go back and test this area. That's honestly what I'm only interested in, the Qs. Okay, in the Nasdaq. Okay, so now moving on, bear side. Okay, we know we have supply. We know we have resistance that has not been able to be broken. Okay, this has been resistance multiple times. We're gapping up. So what do I want to see if I'm a bear? Okay, push up. Hit this supply in last week's highs. Lower highs. Okay, I'm in a trade. I'm going to go back, take some profits at the gap fill. What's the next move? You push down into the overnight lows. And if you break this 214.35, which is the major level, the most traded price of this year, and you do one of these and the market continues to get weaker, you're going to test the 212.50, the most traded price of the week. These are single prints here, which is not strong foundation. Okay, once you go from here, the market should take this out. Then it's a question of, do you take out yesterday's lows? And you don't have much stopping it from here. You have more single prints here. Okay, which can take us down all the way down to here on 209.55. If it gets nuts, you go down to the most traded price of the year, which is around 207. Okay. I don't think that's all in the cards. Okay. That's just what can happen. Now, you got to remember here. If you got long here, you're getting paid. 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 That's why that short scenario that I just put up can happen. Okay? That's called one time framing. Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. Okay? And if you hit this resistance again, and trust me, if you're long here, you're probably going to take some off. That's why, and you go underneath the 214.35, which is the most traded price of the year, it just has to happen. You're going to clean up this mess. And then people are going to be like, you know what? I don't want to be in this. And that's why it can just keep going. Okay? That's how it works. It's emotions, psychology, and how the market works. Okay? Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that analysis. Okay? Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, do all that jazz. Okay? Now, hopefully you can join me every morning where I give you the market story, the news, the economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards. We go over daily charts, and I just gave you trade scenarios long and short for the NASDAQ and the ES futures. Okay? Now, once the market opens, there's new data. I look at my market internals. I look at some other things. I might have a couple new game plans that come up from that, right? Because nobody knows what's going to happen there. Okay? And if you want that insight, please come join Confluence Trading, my Discord server. I probably will be live today. So come, go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, come join us, and check out what I see doing when the market's open. Okay? I'm very rarely wrong on what the market's going to do. It usually, unless there's a news catalyst, okay? So I'm not there to teach you how to trade. I'm there to give you just a glimpse of how I look at the markets, and I treat the markets like a car mechanic, I guess is the best way I can say it, right? Because anytime you go to a mechanic, right, and if you know cars, hey, if this certain thing happens, it's probably could only be because of this and this. Hey, my lights are blinking when my car's on. Well, most likely your alternator, right? So that's how I look at the market. I need to know why. That's my thing. I need to know why this market's doing what it's doing. So you will get that from me when you join me today live in Discord. You will see that from me. I will tell you the reasons why the market is doing why it's doing. Not a pattern, not a moving average. Why it's doing what it's doing. Okay? All right, so come join me. If you don't come join me, you can see me tomorrow morning. All right? Live on this live stream. All right? Everybody have a great day. Remember, no trade's a trade. Hope everybody stays green today. And I'll see everybody. Oh, I know who Documents is. I know who Documents is. All right. I'll see everybody in the Discord, or I'll see you if you join the live stream tomorrow morning. All right? Take it easy.